Champions League football is back, and we have Arsenal versus Real Madrid. Arsenal versus Real Madrid, right? It's going to be a huge fixture. It's probably the tie of the quarterfinals. It's the biggest clash in this round of the Champions League for this season, I think. I mean, of course, you have other great games, but in terms of this season, doesn't get bigger than Arsenal versus Real Madrid. It's going to be a huge one. The first leg is going to be at the Emirates, and then the second leg will be at the Bernabeu. I'm hoping Arsenal turn the Bernabeu to the burning bow. You know what I mean? I hope Arsenal go there and light it up. I hope Arsenal go there and crash everything. You know, put the whole place in flames. You know, hopefully my players are going to light it up. Declan Rice, Bukayo Saka is back, the chilly boy. Hopefully he's going to be red hot and we knock them out. But today I want to preview the fixture before that's coming up on the 9th of April this week. It's going to be a huge one. You know what? I know it's going to be a hard game. It's probably going to be Arsenal's most difficult game this season because playing Real Madrid, probably the greatest Champions League team ever. Not probably, actually. They definitely are with the most titles. They have 15 Champions League titles. Arsenal have 0. I am so jealous. But it's going to be a big one. And I thought I would, talk about the game and some of the things that could happen. Before we get into that, remember to like and, subscribe to the channel. Follow us on Instagram as well at We Talk Football 24 and on Facebook at We Talk Football. So this week, Arsenal versus Real Madrid. I will say, I mean, of course, it's Real Madrid. I don't think Arsenal have much of a chance to advance to beat Real Madrid. But if there is a slim chance of us making it, we have to take advantage of them coming to the Emirates, right? Whatever advantage is there. That's the first thing, actually. I mean, Arsenal finished third. Arsenal finished third in the Champions League group, right? And Real Madrid were, I can't remember their standings, but they were definitely not in the top 8. Remember, they had to play a play-in or a playoff game with Manchester City to determine who goes through to the last 16. And I feel like the teams, I feel like the higher your ranking in the group stage, the more advantage you had, like the more home advantage you have. So like what I'm saying, Arsenal finished third, right? I feel like if we were playing Barcelona, because we finished third behind Barcelona and Liverpool, if we played Liverpool in the knockout stages or Barcelona, then I would concede Arsenal need to play the second leg away, right? But I feel like it's a little bit unfair. We had a better record, finished higher than Real Madrid in the Champions League group stage, and it wasn't even close. But we have to have the first leg at the Emirates and the second leg at the Bernabeu. I feel like it should be the other way around. You know what I mean? It's like if you look at the NBA or the NFL, the higher your seeding, the higher you finish the regular season, you get home court advantage. So if, for example, right now, OKC are number 1 in the West, in every single playoff game that they will play, or playoff series, if it goes to a game 7, they'll have the home court advantage. If it goes to the last game of the series, they get home court advantage. So I feel like a similar format should be used in the Champions League. But anyway, Arsenal, if they have any chance of, going through to the next round, they have to win this game at the Emirates And probably you want to give yourself something like a 2 goal margin. Maybe 2-0, 3-1 if you can. It seems difficult, but I think those are the kind of things that you have to do. If you don't, and you go to Real Madrid with either a draw or maybe like a 1-0 or a 1 goal margin advantage, I don't think that's enough to fend off Real Madrid. They're just too good. The attack is just too fluid, just too explosive. They score goals, they create goals, and they probably like individually, they probably have the best individuals on attack, in all of football. So the keys to Arsenal probably winning is our defense. I've been saying Arsenal have the best defense in football. And I believe that because number one of the players that Arsenal have, I think Arsenal have the best centre back pairing, um, in football between Saliba and Gabriel. Now, unfortunately, Gabriel is not going to be there. But I was super encouraged last night when I watched the Everton game, to see Ben White play. I thought he was injured, but he is available. And I think if I had to choose between Kivior and Ben White, I'm going Ben White. So our defense has to be solid. Timber has to play. He played yesterday as well, so that was a good sign. You need to have Partey and Declan Rice in midfield. I think, another thing, it's going to be an interesting battle between Declan Rice and Federico Valverde. I think they have very similar games. I think Federico Valverde is like super world class. He's probably the best number 8 in football, but their styles are similar. Hard running, relentless workhorses. They're like gazelles going up and down the pitch, creating chances, tackling, shooting. And that's going to be a really, really interesting battle between those two. You need Partey, you need Martin Odegaard going back to his old club, the club that bought him as a 15-year-old wonder kid. He needs to step up. We need our captain to be the captain, to take us forward. You know what I mean? To create chances, to probably score a goal as well, to dictate the tempo of the game, control the game as he has done many times for Arsenal before. And that's why he's the captain. He needs to show us. If there was ever a time to show us, especially this season, having had the kind of like season he's had, I think he's had an average season. This is the time that he has to come up big for us and show us. I'm glad Bukayo Saka is back to keep that Real Madrid defense honest. I don't think they are as good as their offense and midfield, the Real Madrid defense. And that's why they're sniffing around so many defenders. Dean Huijsen, they want Saliba. I think I've heard of them being interested in Ibrahima Konate as well. So I think Arsenal, on Arsenal's side, that's like, those are the key players. Those are the battles that I'm looking for an Arsenal, win. And, it's great. The other great thing is, and it's a very, very small sample size, the tie between Arsenal and Real Madrid, in 2006. That's the only tie. That's the only kind of, tie that we have, or history that we have between these two big teams. It's astonishing that they've never met before. And Arsenal won that tie, right? We had Henry, and he went to the Bernabeu and he turned it into the burning bar, right? Henry, that day he was unplayable. He had beautiful control. He was strong and physical. He was fast. And the goal that he scored kind of encapsulated his whole game that day, where he had the skill, the pace, and the strength to hold off defenders, to go by defenders strongly with pace. And he scored a beautiful goal. Great finish past Iker Casillas. Had Sergio Ramos laying on the floor. And we need something like that. We need poise, leadership. And he was the captain, so he showed poise and leadership that day. We need something like that in order to win the game and the whole tie, really. Um, but if you look at the game, I think it's going to be a really tough one. So mm, if you look at Real Madrid and their history in the Champions League, they always just find a way to do it. They just always find a way to make it happen. Somehow, some way, they could be having, a really bad game. They could be having a terrible, a terrible time, and they just come up and score a goal and they're through. Or they come up and, final few minutes. That's what happened, against a few teams. That's what they did to a few teams. They've done it to. We've seen them do it to PSG. We've seen them do it to Liverpool. We've seen them do it to Chelsea. We've seen them do it to Manchester City. We've seen them do it time and time again, where they show why they are football royalty, why they have a huge crown on top of their logo to symbolize their royal status in football. And I think the key for them is their midfield battle, of course. I think they do have a better midfield than Arsenal, but Arsenal are good enough to compete well against Real Madrid. Federico Valverde, I expect him to be there. I expect Jude Bellingham to play well. And I don't know who else is going to play, probably Tchouaméni as the defensive anchor in midfield. And then you also have Modric and Camavinga coming on. Man, like that is some firepower. That is just greatness, right? You know what I mean? Like if you can have a starting midfield of Tchouaméni, Bellingham, and Federico Valverde, and you can also call on Modric and Camavinga to come on, that is just a super squad. And then you also have the threat up front of Kylian Mbappe and Vinicius Jr. And also you could add Rodrigo. And they just keep, like, they have a lot of threats up front, and they have players who come up big in big games. Like if you think of Mbappe, the hat trick in the World Cup final, if you think of Vinicius Jr. scoring in Champions League finals, and you think of Rodrigo also coming up big. Remember, I spoke about how Madrid knocked out Manchester City a few times. If you go back a few years ago, when Manchester City had a 4-3 lead at the Bernabeu, I think they had scored a goal as well, and it looked like they were going through. Last few minutes of the game, Rodrigo scores 2 goals, 2 headers to keep Madrid in the tie. Benzema finished it off with a penalty and they go through. So they have big game players. They have really great world-class players. And also they have big game, insanely big game players as well. Kylian Mbappe, Vinny, the ones to point out. And you know what? Like I've said, Rodrigo is overrated, and I do stand by that. But he's a good player. I don't think he's world-class, but he's a good player. And so he will give Miles Lewis Skelly a tough time of it, but I think Skelly is going to be okay. I think he's been great. He's played like he's 28. He's 18 going on 28 years old. He's that good. And so it's going to be a very interesting battle. The coaching battle is also going to be interesting, how Arteta is going to set up his team and how Ancelotti is going to play this game, this tie, and how is he going to go through? Is Carlo Ancelotti still motivated at Real Madrid? He's probably going to coach Brazil at the end of the season. And is he still motivated to win Real Madrid trophies? Is he going to say, I want to leave on a high, probably win La Liga or the Champions League or win both? Is his motivation, is his hunger still there for Real Madrid to win things? You know what I mean? So it's going to be a very interesting one. My prediction will be, as much as it pains me to say this, I think it's probably going to be a draw at the Emirates. I think it could be a 1-1 draw, and then going back to the Bernabeu, Real Madrid finish us off probably 2-0. I do think Arsenal are good enough to compete and win in this tie. I don't think it's going to be this season though. I think it's come a little early, and this season hasn't been a great season. And so I don't think Arsenal are ready yet to knock out a big team in the Champions League like Real Madrid. Anyway, that's the end of the video. I enjoyed talking about that. Please let me know what you think in the comments. Like, subscribe, remember to share as well. And follow us everywhere on Instagram at We Talk Football and at We Talk Football 24, and on Facebook at We Talk Football. Have a nice weekend. See you next time. Buenas.